The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. And thanks to our great friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're distributed to cable systems serving an additional 12 million households. I'm your host, Gary Baumgarten. Happy Valentine's Day to you all. I think Valentine's Day was started as a holiday here in the United States, probably by the card companies, so that they'd have something to sell. And it's got a life of its own, and it's worldwide now, to the point where everybody's sending Valentines to one another over Paltalk. A lot of fun. And so Valentine's Day, of course, is the day of love. And so who better to bring on as our guest today than Dr. Joy Davidson. She's a psychologist, a sexologist, a writer, a speaker, and a cultural commentator. She is the author of a provocative and inspiring book about female sexuality called Fearless Sex, which will answer your questions about your erotic spirit, embracing your capacity for pleasure, and bringing empowered passion to your most intimate relationships. We'll talk about how Valentine's Day can put the spark into your relationship and how you can make every day Valentine's Day. Dr. Joy Davidson, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I am so happy that you are here with us as well. Let's talk about your credentials right from the start. You know, there's an individual on the radio who calls herself a doctor. Her first name is not Joy. I don't want to make it sound like I'm attacking Dr. Joy Brown, who is, I believe, a psychologist, who dispenses advice all the time, but really doesn't have the credentials. You, however, do know what you're talking about.
Yes, I do. I'm the real deal. You know, it's very interesting, especially in the area of sexuality. We have people who are journalists or who have had a lot of sex or who have taken a lot of workshops who are calling themselves sex experts. They have no credentials whatsoever, but because they are very media savvy, they know how to get themselves in front of the microphones or the cameras, and suddenly there's this whole surge of people who are not credentialed or certified in any way, but who are spouting off, sometimes very wisely actually, but nevertheless you can't quite count on that, spouting off about sex and relationships and the psychology of both with nothing to go on but maybe a BA in literature. And so you really have to be very careful about who you take advice from these days. As a sex therapist, I'm certified by ASECT, which is the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, and it is the premier certifying body for sexual health professionals in the world. So you have to kind of look to how people are defining themselves and where they got their credentials. And yes, I have real ones.
Yeah, and actually, I think that those who don't have real credentials make it difficult for people who do. Now, the work you do is not tawdry. It is giving actual sound advice to couples so that they can improve their relationships.
Absolutely. I work with, and I have worked with couples and individuals, men and women, for many years. I've written books on this topic, articles every month on loveandhealth.info. I have videos on the topic at thejoyspot.com, and I really try to be of service to people. My whole line of Joy Spot videos are free online with a lot of information and a lot of sound and often very explicit help about enhancing your sex life and enhancing your relationship, because this is kind of a question of the age. People want relationships, they want to be in love, they want to have healthy, exciting sex lives, and they want to continue keeping those sex lives alive and vital throughout the years of their relationship, but nobody is 100% sure, or half the time even 20% sure, how to do it. So there really is a great need for an opportunity to ask questions and talk openly about feelings and experiences.
The guest is Dr. Joy Davidson. She's a psychologist and a sexologist. She gives therapy and advice to people. And your main area of more narrow expertise and interest is to help women, frankly, enjoy themselves, enjoy their lives from a physical and sexual sense.
Yes. You know, I do try to be helpful to both men and women, but I think that one of the greatest difficulties in our culture really is that we have subjugated women's sexuality to the service of men's pleasure. And so women really are kind of caught between, pardon the expression, a rock and a hard place, because they want to please their partners, but they often don't know how to do that and please themselves as well, and aren't even sure that they have the right to their own pleasure. You know, girls actually are brought up to think that sex is somehow sleazy and skanky, and if they're sexual, they're slutty. So women are supposed to be sexually desirable, but not necessarily be sexually overt or have strong sexual urges themselves. And if they do, that's kind of supposed to be only in the service of a relationship. And often women who are more sexually expressive for their own gratification and pleasure, but aren't locked into one relationship, either because they don't want one or they just haven't found the right person yet, are still kind of looked down upon as not being quite right, not being okay, because they are experimenting, because they're adventuresome, because they treat their sexuality as the gift that it is, and they insist upon enjoying it. So women need a lot of help in feeling confident about their sexuality and in discovering what really turns them on, what really makes their bodies tingle, and what makes them tick. And women are different. I mean, there is no one-size-fits-all kind of sex play for women. So you have to experiment. Women have to be willing to try various things, and their partners do too, because we are rather unique in that respect. So giving women the sense that they've got